workflow, but nothing like that on the very first step. The very first important steps that I did is communication. I prepared a full length of presentation and given time to explain to them all from the stakeholders, engineers, marketing team, and I lay out the facts and plan how to move forward based on the data and best practices. And I feel that this is a very important step because later down the road, all the business decisions, they need to consider the performance impact on the site. And after I talk to those stakeholders, engineers, and marketing, I talk to designers, UX and UI designers, and shares that we are going to have a performance-based approach development. So they can understand our goal. When they design the site, they use mobile-first approach, avoid hidden content such like sliders or tab content, and avoid any like element overflow and long content. They will design in such a way how the content should be provided to the user. And with the mobile first, it will reduce a lot of complexity. Next thing I do is for the engineering part, I create a documentation of the whole engineering workflow, and that comes down to this flowchart and how the engineers should interact from the tickets created until it gets deployed to the production. So there is an automated test that I'm going to talk more about it, and but basically here is the workflow of the development in the project. Now, a little bit on the engineering side, I also create like a documentation and the requirements on the high level, what we need to be implemented on the site. Like from the CSS standpoint, it's clearly defined the visual stability, like all the images, all the iframes need to have a dimension attributes. And we do the code splitting, we do the block element modifiers for code reusability. And at last, all those things need to be documented as a best practice, as opinionated best practice. And this documentation will be implemented as a linter rules and also stay in a document where the new engineers should read that before they start working on the project. On the CSS side, so we also do the code splitting. Like we split between small viewport, medium viewport, and large viewport, and only load when it's needed and necessary. Okay, this JavaScript file. JavaScript file is one of the second heaviest element on a website, comes second after images. The JavaScript file is also need to be documented. Like our approach in high level is the same, similar to CSS. One is the code splitting, and we use no jQuery. We use only vanilla JavaScript in any way we can, and we only execute JavaScript when it's needed. And all JavaScript codes need to be asynchronous and defer the execution after the document load. And of course, all those things need to be documented as an opinionated best practice and also implemented as a linter rules to keep the code quality. Sample of our code to do the splitting JavaScript files is with the multiple entries. This is done quite easily with the Webpack configuration. And this helps us to define where and what script need to load in what page. And splitting the JavaScript into maximum like 80 kilobyte per size, per file, I mean, and it will throw warning when the file size is exceeded. Okay, this is one thing that one of the important part is third-party JavaScripts. We can always control the first-party JavaScript that we have, but how about the third-party JavaScript? We cannot always control them. So the best practice that in our approach is limit the third-party scripts that we are going to have. Always refer back to the performance budget that we agree, and always do the test and monitoring for those third party, because sometimes when they update, things can get slowed down. And the last part is, this is a unpopular opinion, which not everyone agree, that we load all the third-party JavaScript after the window.onload event. Even though we load all those third-party JavaScript like very low priority, but there are some third parties that we cannot. And in our case, one trust is need high priority after we discuss with the marketing team and with the stakeholders, because we need to have this exception due to law regulation of GDPR with the cookie policy. Okay, so we lay out our approach, our strategy, make documentation. Now, all those things we can automate them. We can automate all those strategy, and we let the bot do the test on every steps that we do. So come back to the uh, our development workflow, and this will implement the automated test, and I'm going to get more on this. Okay, so the automated test can easily done with the GitHub Actions. As you can see in the screenshot, I run automated tested on GitHub Actions, and we can have a lot of other thing, not just like how CI. We can test for the code quality. We can test with the um, like this with the code quality of CSS, code quality of PHP, code quality of JavaScript, and a lot of other automation that you need to do. And we can also run the Lighthouse to get our performance score on every pull request that we do. This will keep our code, like we can catch early if anything that happened to our code that caused a performance degradation. We can catch that earlier, and the test won't pass, and the engineers that work on and that bit of code need to fix that and make the with more performance side. So here is the flow of the Lighthouse CI. We open a pull request, the GitHub Actions kick off, and the Lighthouse CI run to check the website and show the scoring. This is basically the flow how it works. To make it works, we need Lighthouse CI server. And Google Chrome released this in the repository in that link. You can see that link on GitHub. So the Lighthouse CI server is a node-based application that you can run, and it can store this Lighthouse CI test file and compare it time to time. So if you have that installed, you can have this graphic, like a performance graphic and like a timeline, and you can see how your code is behaving and see the progressing on every commits and see the performance real close and monitor that. Okay, so let's implement the Lighthouse CI, which is the main topic of the day. How we can implement this? There are two options that you can have. The first one is the cheapest and the easiest. You can just use temporary public storage provided by Google Chrome team, or you can spin your own private CI server. And for our case, since we cannot disclose the site that we are working on, so we choose the private CI server, and you are welcome to if you are working on the open source project, just freely do use the temporary public storage. But if you're working on your client projects, I strongly advise to spin up your private CI server. On the what service you can host your any in any kind of services that you want for this CI server. It's a Docker base or Firebase or Heroku or Exabytes or anything that you feel comfortable with, as long as it can run node server. And in this case, I'm going to choose Heroku, mm, just because simply it's free and it has a CLI command that I like the most. And since it it has a free tier package and it comes with limitation, but with I being able to spin up a new CI server fast and easy, it's I just choose this. But you are welcome to choose any kind of CI service that you like. So I to set up a new Lighthouse CI server on Heroku, I simplified the script that I got from this Google Chrome Lighthouse CI repository, and I simplified that into five five commands that you need to execute, and we are going to do that together. So to make that easily, let me just spin up my command line. Um, First, I just copy and paste those script, and all you need is just name your Lighthouse CI server. I have this one already exists, so let's just do this, and it spin up. It will create the Lighthouse, the new node on Heroku, and that's it. I already have one node on Heroku. Now I just need to copy two files into the repository, and and last thing I need to add that into the Git repository and push that into uh, Heroku. And this process can take 1 minute to finish. Okay, something. Um, okay, sometimes in live server it doesn't work. I don't know why. Let's just check. Mm, I don't know why, but since I'm running out of time, once you have this Lighthouse CI spin up, you can have this Lighthouse CI server, and I already have that spin up before this talk, and you can have this spin up and ready. So next thing is we need to install the Lighthouse CLI on our server. Sorry, on our local, and we run the Lighthouse CI wizard. So to do that, we just need to run this new project and use your Lighthouse CI server. And let's name this LICA app, and just I will have this repo. What is the main branch, trunk, and that's it. Now this will have two sites, 2021 and LICI app. And remember to use this build to store this build token safely, because you need that later. Okay, so after you set up this Lighthouse CI server, you create the Lighthouse the project on the Lighthouse CI server, and the next thing you need to have is install the Lighthouse CI GitHub app on your GitHub repo. This is I did install this, and if you don't have installed it, you need this will say install, and this will configure and give access this Lighthouse CI GitHub application to your repository. Okay, I have that. I give the permission to that Lighthouse CI GitHub app uh, to my repositories. 2021 is one of them. Okay, so um, I cannot disclose the project that I did work on my story, but in this case, just for this demo, I'm going to use new WordPress theme called 2021 as an example, but the technique and the flow is just the same. So I did fork WordPress 2021 into my repository, and I did setting. I need to set this repo variable secrets. And to do that, I just go to the repo settings and go to secrets. It taking a little bit of time. Okay. Um, this LHCI GitHub app token is you get from this GitHub Lab token that you when you start this application. At the end, it will give you the token, store it and don't lose it. And the LHCI server base URL is your LHCI server URL on Heroku. And the LSCI token is the token that generated from our command, which is the build token. So you put the build token there, you put the URL, you put the app token there, and that's it. That's all you need for now. And now let's move on to the GitHub actions. We need to wrap all those flow and wrap everything in the GitHub actions. Here is the script that I put into the GitHub action workflow. I'm going to explain it per lines. So I create the Lighthouse CI workflow, and it has job name LSCI. It runs on every push and pull request. It runs on Ubuntu latest image. The first thing it does is install Node.js version 12 and install LSCI CLI and WordPress.env, WordPress env npm package. WordPress env npm package is a tools, a small tools, a CLI tool to create Docker image on your local server. So with the WP env start, I can start the local server with WordPress, and it will run on port 888. When it's ready, it will run the Lighthouse CI collect to the testing and run with the localhost port at 888. And once it's done, it will upload the artifact to the Lighthouse CI server with this token secret that we define in our settings. And lastly, it will do the assertion or the test with uh, the test that we define for our application. And it has a lot of configuration that I'm going to go through quickly. So for later, you can just go to my GitHub repo and you can see the file changes on this PR, and this is the workflow that I implemented. And here is the budget file, the budget.json file that I generate using the performance budget. And here is the Lighthouse CI, sorry, the Lighthouse RC file that will explain and how to do the assertion, how to do the testing. And we can just use the preset Lighthouse recommended and just do exceptions for a certain assertions. And all this configuration is defined very well in this documentation in the Google Chrome Lighthouse CI configuration. It has quite a lot of configuration that you can have on this assertion part. So with that, here is the example when I push a new commit or open a new PR, it will set up, run the Lighthouse CI command, install the requirement package, run the WordPress server, run the Lighthouse CI, upload the artifact to CI server, and voila, that's it. And you have this um, performance monitoring time to time, and you can see how your code is behaving on the performance base. And you can monitor this, and you can also add um, and you can tweak that assertion. So when that part is not passed, then this PR cannot be merged. So it will force the engineers to keep the performance at best, and if it's not passed, we just cannot deploy to production. And at the end, with the GitHub Lighthouse application, you can see the performance score uh, from the Lighthouse test, and you can set the rule if it's down, like from your threshold. Like for example, it cannot be less than 95, and and it simply just failed the test, and this PR cannot be merged. So you can keep the performance while development. You can keep the web performance, and the outcome will have the good performance of your site. You already see it works, and the result is with this performance first development, make the performance the highest priority in all decisions that we made. And with defining this and implement this in our workflow, we can assure the outcome of when we do production or deployment or launch into production, we still have the performance that we need. And here is the real case that when we launch the site, it has the 97 score of performance on production. And the good thing is, since I'm no longer in that project, the workflow still alive, and they keep the engineers that working on it has all the documentation they need, and they keep continue improving it, and we stay to keep deliver the highest performance of the site. And looks like I'm in time. Thank you so much for your time, and yeah, hit me if you have any questions on Twitter on my email. Back to you, Lauren.
Thank you, Evan. So right now we don't have any questions so far. Let's just give our viewers maybe 1 to 2 minutes to just type in if they do have any questions, and we can chit chat in the moment.
Am I too fast?
No, you're perfectly on time actually.
Yeah, I tried to. Yeah, I see the timing.
Thank you so much for being, sensitive to the time. Actually, all our speakers, from yesterday and today, they've been very on time, so we appreciate that very much. Sometimes, we have speakers who go a little bit too long, and then we feel bad because we have to cut them off. And then the thing is, sometimes some topics you just cannot compress them into, the given time. So, give and take, lah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. What are your plans for the week so far?
This week,
Yeah.
I I don't know. I don't have any plan yet, but let's see. Well, I spent the whole morning to create this presentation, so I'm exhausted. I'm a little bit exhausted, so I'm going to lay my head down a bit after this.
I completely understand. I know how that feels like. Because it's actually more mentally draining than people think. People think, oh, just put together some slides, you're going to talk about it, but no, it's actually a lot of planning that goes into it. So with that being said, you guys, if you actually enjoyed his presentation, let's go ahead and say thank you. Let's give him a big round of applause in the chat box right now. Let's see if we have any questions so far. I don't think we do. But yes, Ivan, would you like to just go ahead and drop your contact details in the chat box right now? Perhaps your LinkedIn page or how we can, get in touch with you if we do have any questions. Could you please do that for us?
Yes, so I need to, how can I, panelists and attendees?
Yes,
So
click all panelists and
contact
attendees.
me on Twitter, uh, .com and or email at yep. I forget this. Yep, that's all I have.
All right, super cool. Okay, so Ivan, we don't have any more questions for now. I'm gonna have to let you go, but do stick
Mm-hmm.
around maybe for the next presentation as long as you like. And if there are questions that pop up which are being sent to you, if you could answer at your own time, that'd be wonderful. But for now, I'm just gonna say bye to you and thank you so much for being a part of
Thank
Webmaster Asia
you.
2020.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Be safe, enjoy your day, and get lots of rest.
Bye.
All right, bye, Evan.
Exabytes. Grow your business online.